Hey everybody, it's the waitingfornextyear.com podcast. I'm your host, Craig Lindell, and man, I'm on vacation, but it's hard to ignore the Browns. Even as they lost their final game of the season, they fired everybody again. I thought I was going to come on here and talk to you about firing Freddie Kitchens, and while that's not a great thing, in theory, I mean, in philosophy, you don't want to fire coaches after 1 year. It's not a great thing to have to fire a coach after 1 year, but Freddie Kitchens really kind of didn't give you much of a choice. It's the situation that they ended up in when they made the choice to elevate Freddie Kitchens to the role of head coach and have him fail so spectacularly. And I was going to talk to you about how it wasn't all Freddie's fault, because the organization allowed him to make the decisions that he made, and they made decisions around him that put him in the situation to fail. You know, whether it was allowing him to call his own plays or giving him more responsibility than what he was ready for. There were rumors that John Dorsey picked some of the assistant coaches, or allowing him to get rid of so many people who had been a key to his success running Todd Haley's offense at the end of Baker Mayfield's rookie season. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like Freddie Kitchens is some victim, but he didn't control every variable. That's abundantly clear, especially now. That was what I was going to talk to you about. And then the Browns went, and over the course of the next couple days, they had John Dorsey give a statement about letting Freddie Kitchens go. They put him in a position where we thought he was still in charge of things by letting him make a statement about the move that the team was making, presumably because he was going to be involved in the next round of decisions going forward as the general manager. Nope. Why would we be so stupid as to think that could ever persist? A couple days later, the Browns fire John Dorsey. They say they mutually parted ways, which is utter garbage. Nobody believes that. And now I've resurrected my hashtag Sell the Browns campaign. And it's left the entire media landscape and fan base scrambling to try and figure out how to look at this team going forward. Doug Lesmerises wrote about how this is squarely on John Dorsey. He had all the opportunity in the world and he failed miserably. I think that lets the Haslams off the hook. So let's talk about John Dorsey and the things that he did. He certainly was not perfect. Some of his most glaring mistakes were trading for Olivier Vernon, Antonio Callaway. Risk reward. You could say that wasn't a total bust, but in the end, he drafted a player that the Browns ended up having to cut because he got suspended. He drafted a kicker in the 5th round, and now that kicker had a good season, but also missed 6 extra points. You don't really expect that when you draft a kicker in the 5th round. But then again, John Dorsey, and this is where I have the biggest struggle, where people are they try and act like it's a zero-sum game, and they have to choose. Well, it's John Dorsey or Jimmy Haslam, and really what we've got going on here is John Dorsey was qualified to be a GM of an NFL football team. That doesn't mean every move that he made was going to be perfect, but the fact is that he put a roster together that should have been able to win lots more games than what they did this year. He put together a roster that should have been able to probably make the playoffs, should have been able to dominate their division. And yes, this roster did win. They beat every team in their division at least once, which, I mean, that's a big deal. In any other year, that would be a big deal. But the fact is that John Dorsey was also responsible for Freddie Kitchens. I mean, obviously the organization greenlit that decision as well. John Dorsey can't make that on his own, but he did. He was leading that charge from what we're led to believe, and it was an utter disaster. It was a mistake so big that it cost him his job. I'm not so sure that it should have cost him his job, and it sounds like there was some I was going to say jousting between the Haslams and Dorsey about what his role was going to be and what the responsibilities were, and maybe, that's why they came out and said it was mutual in the end, because the Haslams wanted a certain level of control and Dorsey wanted to maintain a certain level of control, and we arrived where we arrived. But I'm left today just feeling miserable once again. You can say whatever you want about John Dorsey, and you can pick apart his moves to a micro level and tell me all the mistakes he made. And I'll even agree on most of them. I'll agree on most of the mistakes. Obviously, the biggest one is Freddie Kitchens. But the fact is that he was qualified for his job. It could reasonably be assumed that he could learn from his mistakes. He could improve over time. John Dorsey is a football philosophy. The ownership group, you could argue, has a football philosophy with a guy like John Dorsey in place. Now that they've fired yet another executive, they fired a coach again after 1 year. They fired an executive after, I think, just less than 2 years. And we have no idea what their foundation is, their philosophy is, because guess what? They don't have one. John Dorsey was qualified for the position that he held. The Haslams have never been qualified to run a football team, and they prove it every single time they get involved with the Cleveland Browns. The Haslam family is the worst thing that's ever happened to Cleveland football, and I'm including Art Modell. Consider that. Consider that. The Haslam family has no idea what they're doing. I have zero confidence that they can ever figure it out, because why would I have any confidence that they're capable of learning, that they're capable of progressing, that they're capable of doing anything other than turning on a dime every couple of years? If they even let it last that long. There is absolutely no evidence, no proof, nothing that you can point to that they are good at anything. Anything. You can look at John Dorsey, you can look at Freddie Kitchens, you can look at anybody they've ever hired, with the exception of Sashi Brown, who was also never qualified for the job he had. Although you could say Sashi Brown was good at something too. He was good at asset accumulation. Okay? But name one thing the Haslams are good at. Name it. Name it. What do you hang your hat on? It's not leadership. It's not football philosophy. It's not corporate culture. It's not team culture. It's what the only thing they're good at is having lots of money, I guess. If that could be considered something they're good at. If this was an NBA franchise, and considering what we've been through as a fan base, both in football organization, lack thereof, and what he went through with the Pilot Flying J FBI investigation, you could make the case that Adam Silver would have taken control of this team. The owners would have voted to oust him from the country club. They would have sold it at auction and said, sorry about your luck, Jimmy. You're out. You're out. And they should be out. They are not good at anything. They've never been good at anything. They don't deserve to be a member of this club, this fraternity of NFL owners, and they should be gone. They were implanted in our city by the NFL, the Pittsburgh Steelers, who had them as minority owners of their team for however long that took place. They have nothing to do with Cleveland other than they were rubber stamped by the NFL and their co-owners. And that same group could do something and should do something. I have zero confidence in them, and their fellow owners should have zero confidence in them too. I know this sounds like crazy talk, but in reality, you all know it's true. These people have no capability of doing the thing that they're supposed to be able to do, and that's own this NFL team and be stewards of it. They have no capability. They've shown us no proof that they can learn from their mistakes or that they have any way of getting on the right path. And we are all paying for it year after year, generation after generation, and it's tired. It's done. Any defense of them is delusional and desperate. I know you want to find ways that these things will work out, but they won't. They won't. You've got nothing to hang your hat on. You've got no reason to believe that anything that they're ever going to do is going to work. Nothing. They've never shown you anything that would lead you to believe that they're going to do anything that's going to work. Nothing. And I'm tired of any defense of this team or justification or trying to figure out a way where it's going to work. Stop it. Stop it. They've shown you the evidence. You've seen it. Hell of a way to start off 2020, man. Hell of a way. You know, all we want to do is love this football team, buy gear. I'm wearing a stupid Browns hat right now. All we want to do is love this team. And here they've wasted the rookie contracts of Myles Garrett. They've seriously put in jeopardy the rookie contract of Baker Mayfield. Right now, they've turned Baker Mayfield into Colt McCoy. I hate to tell you, he's a less mature Colt McCoy right now. Okay? I don't even know. There's no analysis to be done. There's no analysis to be done. They go for another coaching search, and there's absolutely no shred of evidence that this is going to go well. None. You know, they might hire Josh McDaniels, and Josh McDaniels will bring some his whole crew in and take over, or they'll elevate Paul DePodesta, and some of you will talk yourselves into it, but the fact remains there's no evidence that they're going to give anybody more than 24 months, that they're going to not blow it up again, that they're not going to churn a roster full of players that John Dorsey drafted to another. It's a constant, it's wait with no payoff, wait with no payoff, wait with no payoff, because they constantly, the only thing they're good at is blowing it up. And some of that makes you happy because you're unhappy that the team hasn't progressed. But the team can't progress unless they let people make mistakes and survive those mistakes. But they're totally incapable of doing that. You know, the pound of flesh. Some people are happy to see John Dorsey go. Okay, for what? For what? For another Jimmy Haslam-led search? Are they going to hire Korn Ferry to go out there and find executive level talent again to lead their search? What process are you here to believe in? What philosophy, what leadership structure, what anything? You've got nothing to believe in. Nothing. And they've given you nothing to believe in. So stop believing in it. Stop. Stop looking for ways that it could work out. It can't. It won't. As you can tell, I'm a little bit fired up. Maybe the most fired up I've ever been on this podcast. That's the way it goes. That's what the Browns do to me. That's what Jimmy Haslam does to me. I have zero confidence. And the NFL as a league should have zero confidence. They should step in. They won't, but they should. They should step in. Makes me want to go to the owners' meetings and talk to the other owners. But why should they care? What does it cost them to have a loser in Cleveland running this franchise and churning it every couple of years? Paying 3 coaching staffs at any given time and 2 executive groups at any given time. Is Ray Farmer still on the payroll? Holy hell. Holy hell. All right, I'm going to stop. I'm on vacation. I'm actually enjoying my life. I was supposed to talk to Brian Spaeth about Star Wars last week. It didn't happen. We will do it again. We will do that podcast. It'll just give you guys more time to see it. I've now seen it twice. Down here on vacation in Florida, they have a legit IMAX 3D theater. So my family and I went to see Star Wars a second time in the IMAX 3D, and I enjoyed it even more. That's your tease for the podcast. You're not going to hear a hate cast of J.J. Abrams and Star Wars. It's going to be fun because I loved it. And I loved it both times. I probably liked it even more the second time because I knew it was coming. I was able to pay attention to the subtleties. And that's one of the things I'll talk to Brian Spaeth about, is that these Star Wars movies, they're not created for a single viewing. You know, they're created to be watched 7, 8, 9. They're so thick and full of little details. And so that I think a lot of people forget when they're doing their first round of criticism that these things are supposed to be watched 3, 4, 5 times once a year for the first 5 years or whatever. So, all right, I'm going to calm down. I'm going to enjoy my life. I'm going to enjoy my family now, but I had to get this out. I've been on Twitter, and that's not it's not a fun place to get your thoughts out. So, had to get it out here. Thanks so much for listening. We will talk to you a whole bunch in 2020 here on the podcast. We'll talk to you next time. It's been the waitingfornextyear.com podcast.